Why can't planes fly over Tibet? Or why is that lady doing that? This is the dark side of Tibet. Tibet is the highest landmass in the world at 16,000 feet altitude. Tibetans have lived in their unique environment for thousands of years, and their history dates back to 127 BC. The empire peaked in the 7th and 8th centuries when they conquered parts of Nepal and India. Due to the connection with India, the Tibetans embraced Buddhism so much that they became devoted to its teachings of nonviolence and enlightenment from the 7th to 9th century. This meant that they neglected their military empire, leading to their unique relationship with the Mongols in the 13th century. They created a priest-patron relationship where Mongols provided military support and Tibetan lamas gave Mongol chiefs moral and spiritual legitimacy to rule. In 1642, the Great Fifth Dalai Lama made the Gandham movement, which is a unique monastic coordinated administration. This is when Tibet became a spiritual nation that supported Buddhist education and received protection from the Manchu emperor. The British invaded Tibet in 1904, but the Tibetans seized a moment when the Manchu dynasty succumbed to the Chinese Revolution in 1909 and proclaimed independence in 1912. But it was taken again by the Chinese in 1951, and uprisings led to the massacre of Tibetans in Lhasa. Most of Tibet's area was annexed by the Chinese, while the leftover Tibet-Mutang province and part of Kham are now named the Tibet Autonomous Region. Despite its initial struggle, Tibet's GDP is still growing, with an estimated value of 216.5 billion yuan or 3.2 billion US in 2022. Its GDP per capita is 58,400 won or around 8,685 USD in 2022. If you plan on visiting Tibet, you should be aware of their unique rules. First, you can only travel if you book through a Tibetan travel agency. That's because you'll need a Tibet travel permit, which is only available through a Tibetan agency. You'll also need a tour to go around Tibet because there's no public transport for foreign tourists. Booking through Tibetan agencies is also a requirement from local authorities because tourism has been restricted to only those organized tours to maintain the stability of Tibet's delicate environment. It's not just a travel permit that's unique in Tibet either. The fact that no planes fly over Tibet may also shock you. It's because the area is on a much higher altitude than any other route in the world. During emergencies, such as engine or cabin pressurization failures, airplanes are required to go to lower altitudes at around 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet. Tibet is located higher than that, so it creates a much more dangerous situation when emergencies happen. Another rule in Tibet is to never touch shoulders or heads of Tibetans. This is considered rude because they're sacred in Buddhism. Tibetans may stretch their arms and greet each other, but never touch the shoulders. Instead, they'll nod and exchange pleasantries before saying goodbye. There are also several rules when it comes to dining etiquette. You'll need to accept food or drinks with both hands to show signs of respect. Never turn the bowl upside down, as it's only done to signify dead people, and never extend your legs where the soles of your feet are facing another person. A social etiquette you'll need to remember in Tibet is to never whistle indoors or at night, because Tibetans believe that you'll attract spirits or ghosts. One more that will shock you is sometimes Tibetans might show their tongue when greeting each other. This is because a black tongue is the sign of demons, and it's a way to prove they're not the devil. But now let's talk about one dark past that Tibetans would like to leave behind, which is serfdom. Tibet was not the Shangri-La we would all like to imagine, and it was ruled by feudal serfdom for centuries, where millions of serfs were poorly treated and oppressed. The high-ranking lamas and landowners would impose taxes upon people and force boys into monastic serfdom. Punishments were harsh in serfdom, such as whips and blinding with eye-gouging stones. One of the narratives that exist is that Chinese occupation helped in the elimination of serfdom when they brought over communism ideology and cracked down on serfdom in 1951. It's still debatable whether or not the Chinese takeover was a necessary sacrifice to overcome serfdom. Some say the horrors of serfdom were so exaggerated, while others agreed that they're much more prosperous after. Tibetans are very religious people, with their rituals and artifacts holding utmost importance to their daily lives. These artifacts are believed to have tantric powers that can result in successful rituals. But what's amazing about these tools is that most are made using human remains. One such artifact is called the Dhammaru, which is a two-headed drum made from two skulls. There's also the Kangling, which is a trumpet made out of a human femur. Fittingly, the Kangling is used to summon spirits. Lastly, there's Kapala, a skull cup used for offerings such as herbs or flowers. It was even recorded that Tibet used to have human sacrifices before there was Buddhism in the region, and Tibetans were practicing the old Bon faith. Aside from human sacrifices, there was also cannibalism and devil worshipping. In the 7th century, Buddhism was brought over to Tibet, and they created a new Buddhism of Tibet, Lamaism. Tibet is also home to one of the most dangerous pilgrimage journeys in the world, the pilgrimage of Mount Kailash. Thousands of people go through the pilgrimage each year, where they hope to clean their past and get good fortune in the future. Mount Kailash was believed to have ancient spiritual power ever since ancient times, and a nearby lake called Lake Manasarvar is believed to have water that can wash away all sins. This journey is not just a mental challenge, but also physical. Pilgrims will have to trek through 5,000 meters of altitude and pass through the Dromala Pass at 5,630 meters. People have died while taking this journey because pilgrims are unable to acclimatize to the high altitude. Some pilgrims will often get stranded as well if the weather conditions are bad, leading to congestion and dangerous health effects. Usually, Tibet and Nepal will work together to figure out a way for pilgrims to have a safe journey. The journey is considered holy by Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains, making it as popular as it is deadly. Tibetans also have a unique way of praying. On their way in the pilgrimage, you'll find their bodies having full contact with the floor. They'll take 3 steps, stop, get on their knees and hands, and lie down flat on their stomachs so their foreheads touch the ground. This shows the ultimate devotion, with people often having scars on their foreheads as evidence. One of Tibet's sources of income is its tourism industry, with its hot springs being a signature attraction. It's a way for Tibetans to battle the cold temperature due to the height by taking a dip inside their hundreds of hot springs. But before you decide to join in and go for a dip in their geothermal pools, you'll need to look carefully at your surroundings, because you could be sharing the water with Tibetan hot spring snakes. It turns out humans aren't the only ones who are freezing in Tibet. So are these snakes. They usually lurk at the edges of geothermal pools and hibernate. But don't worry, they're not venomous, and you only need to get over their physical presence. Another issue you need to take into account is the safety around hot potting or soaking in hot springs. It's a dangerous activity that could lead to serious injury and even death. The high temperature could lead to dehydration and dizziness. Hot springs that are not well kept could also have dangerous bacteria, which could get into your skin or internal infections. Make sure you choose ones that are authorized and acknowledged by the Tibetan governments to avoid such conditions. Another deadly region in Tibet is the NPA Pass or Nangpa La. Remember how many Tibetans don't agree with the current government administration? Many have tried to escape via the Nangpa Pass to go to their neighboring country, Nepal. These people are exiling themselves, and there were approximately between 2,000 and 3,000 Tibetans who have crossed through the Himalayas via Nepal to India each year since the 1950s. As the oppression became unbearable, they were escaping to seek protection from the neighboring countries, especially monks and nuns who were seeking education in a more lenient country. Sadly, if these people are seen by the Chinese or Nepalese military, they can be shot at. That's not the only danger lurking when you're in the Nangpa Pass. You'll also be fighting the cold and frostbite. With the altitude being more than 19,000 feet or around 5,800 meters, you'll risk cerebral and pulmonary edema. But these days, the monitoring of Chinese border patrols has been extra tight. That's why it seems like no one has attempted to escape ever since 2009, and it's now deemed as too dangerous and not worth the sacrifice. The current complex history of Tibet and its current condition reveals a region that's rich with cultural and spiritual background. Hopefully, Tibet will overcome these dark sides and prosper in the future.